With us right now, Congressman Collin Peterson out of Minnesota. They just wrapped up the Farm Roundtable with Congressman Kevin Cramer. Congressman Peterson, thank you for your time. I know you guys are very, very busy. A couple things that jumped out to me in this conversation. One of them was, you said, you know what, Chris, everyone's talking about the SNAP program. Yes, we're making some changes, but you said, and I quote, we're not cutting anyone's benefits. We're not cutting the SNAP program, not anything out of it.
Well,
is that true?
We have a level of benefits that are in the program. We're not changing that. What we're changing is eligibility. And we have federal rules that are set by law. 130% of poverty, you're above that, you don't qualify. There's asset limits, car limits that are set in federal law. What was done in '96 is they created this exception from the federal law. So this is a kind of a crazy deal. So the state can set the rules that are higher than the federal and send us the bill. So it's not a matter of benefit levels, it's a matter of whether you qualify or not. So some people could lose their benefits. They'd lose the whole thing because they'd be above,
more money, right?
Well, they'd be above the federal deal. And so what I've been, and it's not fair. So why should somebody in one state that has a higher income level on a welfare program that qualifies for this, say they're at 200% of poverty when ours is 130. So in that state, you can be at 200% of poverty, you get food stamps. If you're in the state that doesn't have that, if you're at 130, you don't get it. So I mean, that's not fair. So what we're trying to do is make it the same for everybody in the country. I think we haven't raised that for 20 years, those percentages. So I'd rather see us raise that, put everybody on the same. And like I said, with a car, you need a car to go to work. So get rid of that, raise the asset levels. And so that's what I've been trying to do. Now, the Republicans, they probably go further than I'm comfortable, but I'm more comfortable with what they're doing than what my side is doing.
We'll get to that in a minute. I want to ask you if this is a true and accurate statement. This is an email that came out today from the North Dakota Democrat Party, also an article in the Minot Daily News, and they say, and I quote, that Kevin Cramer voted to eliminate funding for the SNAP program from the Farm Bill.
No, he hasn't voted on it. He's not on the committee, and so there's been no vote.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to get to. A couple of things that jumped out was obviously the big conversation in the room was about the conservation amendments attached to crop insurance. You obviously are saying, hey, Debbie Stabenow is a big fan of this. I'm not. What are you going to do in conference committee to not have that happen?
It's going to be an issue, and what I was trying to tell people, it's going to depend on what the Senate ends up with as a final bill, which we'll know next week, and then what we end up with as a final bill after it goes through the floor. Then it'll go to conference, and there's going to be things in that final deal where there's going to be some things the Senate really wants and things the Senate really doesn't want, and vice versa. And it's going to become a trade-off, of how, a legitimate compromise of how we can get everybody to what they need, what they can live with, As I said, tried to say in there, this conservation compliance is not a big deal in Michigan. Not a big deal in Kansas, or some of these other states. It's a big deal in North Dakota. It's not as big a deal in Minnesota because we've got this wetland law that we're going to have to comply with whether we have it or not. So I'm sympathetic to the North Dakotans. I understand their concerns. Frank and I have kept it out of the bill, but something we're going to have to deal with, and I can't predict at this point how we'll end up.
A couple more questions quickly. Do you get the adjusted gross income raised from the $750,000? Because again, I think if you lower it, you start to play with the actuarial numbers in crop insurance.
Well, I'm not a big fan of this whole idea of payment limits. I've never been a payment limit guy. When it was applied to direct payments, I just thought it was a lot of bureaucracy. I've never been a big fan of the AGI because then you're injecting the IRS into the farm program, which we don't need. You don't. So, I'm not a big fan of putting it in the healthcare system either. But so I'm not a big fan of this. But it's for people that don't know anything about farm programs. this sounds reasonable. And it might pass. And if it does, we'll have to deal with it. But I don't think it's smart.
Speaking about the IRS, you talked about in the room that the NRCC has now come out with a billboard saying that Collin Peterson voted to have the IRS take over your health care insurance. You mentioned that there's some of your colleagues that possibly, if that had come out at such a critical time, would actually walk out of committee and say, I'm walking away with this farm bill, I'm done.
If just about anybody else, if they were doing this to them, they wouldn't cooperate.
But here's my question for you. Don't you need to, because you need the farmers' vote to win in 2014? Yeah. But wouldn't it hurt you more if you actually walked out of the negotiations of the farm bill?
I'm not going to do that. But the point is, this is stupid on their part. That's my point. Now, I'm going to go do the right thing. I'm going to do what's right for my people. But we have a lot of people in Washington that if you treated them this way, they wouldn't do that. So, I mean, what are they doing? You know, Greg Walden apparently doesn't like farmers, you know, because if he did, he'd be helping me get this done, not doing what he's doing.
But also, the NRCC has put you as one of the top 5 most vulnerable
that's
Democrats.
Ridiculous. I got more votes than Kevin Kramer last time. I mean, give me a break.
All right, last question for you. One of the things
the point is, I'm in a district that they think they should have. But good luck beating me, okay?
Is it because Obama lost so bad in your district, or
what?
Because Obama didn't win your district, or?
Right. You know, I mean, this has been going on for years, but I've got a lot of support in this district because I think I represent the district, and I think.
One other thing that both you and Kevin talked about is you kind of looked at each other at one point in this meeting today and said, I don't know if we're going to get the votes.
No, I'm worried about that.
So what are you going to do to make this thing happen?
Well, it's one step at a time. First of all, we got to deal with the amendments. We got to get to that point, and then when it's a final vote, you know, I've got to go to my folks and say, I know you don't like the snap cuts, but the Senate's not going to do this, so you need to look past this. And he's got to go to his people and say what he said today, that, look, if you don't pass this bill, we're going to spend more money on farm programs. We're going to spend more money on SNAP. So that's what, you know, but first we got to get to that point, you know, and it just depends on how the amendments go, what the frame of mind is, how much help we get from Boehner, how much help I'm able to get from Pelosi. I think I'll be able to get some, but...
It sounds like you and Boehner have a pretty good boxing match going on.
I mean, we get along, we're friends. We just disagree on this, and we'll work it out.
One last question. Do you support the diversion project as is today, according to the Army Corps of Engineers?
Well, I'm working with the Army Corps and everybody else. We had a meeting last week with Wallaker and the Fargo folks and the governor and so forth, and all of us. This is not a final deal. This is a work in progress.
Is that more of a no than a yes, or?
No, we're working with the process. And the meeting that we had last week was, can we get this authorized? The Senate is going to get it authorized. The answer is, we don't know. The same thing we got going with the Farm Bill, we got going with the WRDA bill. And what I told the mayor and Dalrymple is, you know, we're not sure they can pass a bill, a WRDA bill in the House. So until we get an authorization, it's even kind of a moot question, you know, so that's the next issue. And if we get this Farm Bill done, we have a lot of money in there for retention. If that retention gets in place this year, we're ready with a lot of projects. If we can get those projects in place and focus them in the Southern Valley, which we're trying to do, we'll take pressure off this diversion. And as I've said before, it'll be a smaller diversion and probably less farmland that has to be affected by the time they get around to building it. I'll guarantee you that what they end up building will be different than what's being proposed today. So why get excited about it? And I've told, we're meeting with some of these folks now, don't get excited because we're not even close to what the final deal is. But Fargo's got a problem. We're working with them. You know.
Kind of a false alarm this year, though. But Congressman Peterson, thanks so much
for
your time. I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
All right.
Let us know your thoughts. Go to our website, 630pov.com. We'll be right back.